my goodness, welcome back. I did not expect to get so many comments and so much support on my Let's Yap video talking about how the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes kind of sucks. But I did, and it definitely did. I just needed to vent. It was a yap/vent session. And so to everyone who is like, girl, we see you. Also, Yu-Gi-Oh! Tends to, like, this is just kind of a common feeling you'll have. And there was a lot of good advice in those comments. So I thought I would share some tips for myself and maybe for you on how to try to fix Yu-Gi-Oh! Burnout. So a big thing that I saw in my comments was people saying, take a break. Take a break. I think what comes before taking a break from Yu-Gi-Oh! When you start having these feelings of like, is this game even fun for me? Is being able to recognize that. Recognizing when you are feeling overwhelmed and then trying to figure out like what it was. Like, honestly, that's why I made that video, because I was like, I've been having a lot of like thoughts that I need to process, and I'm a verbal processor on the internet. So there you go. That was me processing. What is my issue with the game right now? Why am I not feeling content? And one of the biggest tips was, when you start feeling this way, it's time to start analyzing, do you need to take a break? Not playing continuously does not make you any like less of a player, it has no bearings on anything other than probably saving you some, like, it's a game, it's a hobby, it's supposed to be fun. If it is causing a lot of like mental anguish and if it's not fun, taking a break. I'm not planning on taking a break. I'm going to tell you why, because that's like the second tip, like the second big thing that came up in those comments. Really sitting down and analyzing, like, why do I play this game? What do I want out of this game? So I've said this in other videos before, where I am definitely like, I'm a formerly gifted child who, if I'm not immediately good at something, I'm like, no, thank you. I never failed a class, but like I never got a C or even a B in a class because I like really tried and then it just like didn't work well. It was like the minute it got hard, I was like, I'd rather just have that. Like I've always been that way. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been a really positive thing for that self-growth, for that I'm going to try something. As much as I wanted to be a baby genius, like my first duel, I don't know if anyone else does this when like you try something for the first time. Like the first time I tried golf, I was like, oh my gosh, like what if this is it? What if this was my calling? It wasn't. Neither was Yu-Gi-Oh! Like I was not immediately like baby genius. So for personal growth, it has been huge for me. It also has really helped. I got the autism. Okay. And with that comes some emotional dysregulation. So it's also been really helpful for that too, of having to process the feelings of losing, of having to process the feelings of not being good enough, of just all these things. Like the reason I stuck with it at the beginning was because of that. And so when I really sit down after feeling kind of burnt out by it, and I remind myself, like, what is the point? Do I like winning? Yes. But part of that like for winning comes from that need for like validation for being good at stuff. Like so much of my childhood, so much of my like self-worth kind of came through that like former gifted kid lens of like, I was so naturally smart, just so naturally good at things, right? And so when I wasn't naturally good and when things took effort, it was really, really hard. So reminding myself that winning isn't everything, and often it is in the process of losing and feeling these feelings that you actually have a lot of self-growth. Second thing though, because when I first got into Yu-Gi-Oh!, I kind of realized this pretty quickly, where I was like, my purpose cannot be winning. My purpose has never been to be like exceptionally sweaty and like hyper competitive. Would I say I'm a casual player? No, because I'll play a floodgate. Your girl was on Malice maining Di-Fi and Shifter. I'm Secret Village of the Spellcaster. Okay, like yeah, I'll be sweaty, but I knew that if I tied my enjoyment to the game to winning, like if I thought that was being good at the game, again, that's been the whole learning process for me for the past year of learning Yu-Gi-Oh. It was just not going to be fun for me. So I like what I would like out of Yu-Gi-Oh, and then where I think why these feelings, because I've been playing for a year, right? And I think anyone, if you're new to Yu-Gi-Oh, if you remember when you first started Yu-Gi-Oh, you realize you lose a lot. Like if wanting to win was my like, I have to do it, I would have burnt out a long time. I've been in it. I'm having my first Yu-Gi-Oh burnout a year in. And I realized it's because what I want from the game is my version of feeling like successful with the game is having back and forth. Games where I lose, but I felt like, I can see where I would have had agency in this. Like you play the game and then you talk with your opponent. I think that's the best way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Is in having these conversations, especially if you're trying to improve and being like, oh man, if I knew you had, let's say, I knew you had a crackle in hand. And I know that is going to activate when I activate a monster effect on the field. So if I had just, not activated that effect, if I had waited until I had Welcome Home in the center zone so you couldn't pop that monster to therefore have crackle be able to, you know what I mean? Like the feeling of agency, the feeling of yes, I lost the game, but here's how I could have improved. And I'm very lucky to come into Juhu. Like when I first started playing, it was Juhu. Also to all the comments who were like, you think it's bad now? It's been, I get it. Like I hear the tales of the soldiers of Yu-Gi-Oh! Past, but sometimes you just got to let a current player vet and be like, yes, I'm very grateful I didn't live through Snake Eyes. I mean, I was alive. Very grateful I wasn't playing during Snake Eyes, but I'm having my moment now. I get that it could have been worse. That doesn't mean that right now is a feel-good format for a lot of us. But I want to have, it's not even necessarily interaction. I'm trying to not be delusional with what I want either. If I was I want it to go to turn 5 and for there to be, at that point I should just play Genesis. I get it. Yes, I understand that. So for me, even if game ends on turn 2, as they tend to do, if I felt like I had agency in the game or I could have done something or there's a different line or wait, let's replay it if I did this. Let's replay it if you did this. Let's where you get to have those conversations. My fatigue has been coming from playing decks that I admittedly am very new on. I'm also a very new player. That was another interesting comment. Not a lot of people left, but some people were like, well, you just need more skill. And it's yes, but when you have a whole game, if that's the requirement for people to get into Yu-Gi-Oh, be yeah, you want to learn to play Yu-Gi-Oh, but you want to feel successful in the game. And let's even tie success away from winning, right? You just want to feel like you were able to sit down and play a game of Yu-Gi-Oh and not just watch someone play a game of Uno for 20 minutes and then negate your 3 starters and being yay. Yeah, skill will come though. We exist. New player, I've been playing for a year. I still consider myself a new player. And with time and hope and skill, my boyfriend's been playing forever. I trust that if I set him on the task of my Melfi vengeance, if I said, you, good sir, will champion Melfi for me, he would do it and he'd probably win. I think he was doing some pet deck cute little thing during Snake Eyes and won something. Yes, but that's because the guy's been playing for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. I am but a baby. I digress. But reanalyzing why do you play the game? So I play the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's another form of therapy. I feel like it has a lot of things that have helped me grow as a person and have a hobby that I love talking about, that I like interacting with, and that even when I get really frustrated at the game, I feel like I have just grown emotionally, personally through playing the game. But I also want to feel successful through the lens of knowing I had agency. And right now in the format, mix of what I've been playing, I am not feeling like I'm getting to do anything. I have felt recently like I've sat down for games and I lose the dice roll or I win the dice roll and I don't do anything. I can vividly remember because I should say too now, especially after yapping to all of you wonderful people, I do feel better. And also since I changed the deck I was playing, which is going to come up in the next tip, I'm feeling a little better about it. But it was very often feeling there's a specific example of where I was trying to still learn Blitzclick, and I was playing against Rolad. And I think I literally did 3 actions. So we're talking, this was maybe ended up being a 20-minute game, and I did 3 acts. I was playing against my boyfriend, and I told him afterwards because I think he saw that grumpy look on my face. And I was well, when you watch football, and it's time on who has the ball and they show the time, and it's like the second quarter, and it's like I'm like so frustrated at the Broncos for like so frustrated at my team for not winning, and then you see like time on ball, and it's like the Broncos have had the ball for 2 minutes and the Patriots have had it for 15, and you're like, yeah, that like it's just that's what I felt. I felt like time on game, I did 3 actions, and it was like a decently long game, and I just wasn't able to do anything. So like I said, I think the first tip is if you're really feeling like, oh my gosh, it's not fun right now, taking a break. There's like no shame in taking a break. And then the second thing, probably even before you decide to take the break, unless you're really burnt out, is like analyzing, what do I want from the game? Okay, I want to feel like I am having interaction, like I am having agency. Like there could be a chance where I could win, but not only win, but where I feel like I'm improving. I feel like through playing the games, I'm learning something, I'm improving. I feel like I got something out of that, whether it be personal growth, knowledge, like I feel like I'm getting something out of it. And that is my version of success, while still working to detangle the fact that losing still, that's a me thing. That might be a lot of us former gifted kids thing. Losing is like a tough pill to swallow for a lot of us. So that's my second tip. A big tip that came in the comments is kind of like, why are you playing? And then that leads into, I think the big third thing that came up a lot in the comments is looking at what you're playing, looking at your goals, and making concessions and adjusting accordingly. I was not having fun on Melfi, and I had to grieve a bit because I set it up in my mind that I was going to be able to put in the time and effort to have fun for it to be competitive. And I will agree that, like I said, if I put my boyfriend on Melfi, he would do better with it, because like you can't replace time. Like he's been playing, the skill level for some of these things. I wanted to have fun with Blitzclick, and I think Blitzclick Riseal, I have felt better about it, but pure Blitzclick, again, not only just from the perspective of like a new deck, but from the perspective of like as a deck, it is not as what I've been calling baby proof as some other decks are, meaning where there's like a simpler line where there's like, if you make this, it's going to feel more interactive. If you're playing a deck that just has like a negate built in, right? Crystal Wing. You make the Crystal Wing, there's at least going to be some interaction that can be had. So I had to kind of assess and like look at my own feelings and be like, And that is why I'm now playing Elf Notes. Like I said, I've said in other videos, in terms of touching the utmost meta, 1, I don't want to spend the money on cool tunes. I'd rather spend the money on making Elf Notes pretty. 2, I have long considered playing Elf Notes, and I do realize that while I don't consider myself like a fully rogue player, like again, I feel like I play the meta stuff kind of after the peak, the highlight has been. And so I did play Yummy during its height, but as a very new player, it did not feel like I was playing, like I was new. We're talking, that was like, oh my gosh, I started playing in maybe May of 2025, so I was still very new. So I didn't feel like I was able to pilot Yummy in that way. So like the third big tip is like, how can you make those align? How are you feeling about the game? What are you doing? Like, what are you playing? And what concessions can you make? And I think that's where my frustration came with, because like I even said it in a locals vlog. The minute I picked up Elf Note, now granted, my boyfriend had been playing it for a really long time, so there was a little bit of osmosis. Like I wasn't learning it from scratch. So there was that. It was a deck that I had played against, that I knew kind of what it does. It wasn't completely new. I wasn't having to also like teach myself. That was another big thing, is like Blitzclick and Melfi were the first decks that I was like teaching myself. And I think I didn't realize how difficult that was going to be and how much time and effort. And then again, like being a newer player, just not having the skill to immediately feel like I'm having fun with those, like feel like it's aligning with my goals. So I picked up Elf Note, played against Rolad. It did not feel like a one-sided game. I felt like I did something. Not only did I feel like I did something, I won a game. And that's what made me sad. Like that's kind of like the vent of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where like sometimes it makes me sad, is because all it took was picking up a deck that I had never played, but played against, And suddenly I was feeling more successful, feeling like I was learning things, feeling like I was interacting more than with decks that I had put in like time and effort and just couldn't figure out how to like pilot. And that was a concession I had to make, because that's the other thing too. If you want to play your pet deck, and that was another really cool thing to see a bunch of comments of people being like, hey, it will be harder. Like it's the nature of the beast. But there's so many people who they love a deck and they make it work. And to the point of our winner of American Nats, it's not the deck, it's me, right? Like picking up Sky Striker because it won does not mean you're going to top. It's my same thing with like, I think my frustration when I see a bunch of people being like, I want to buy Cold Tune cores. And it's like having the deck, having a more baby-proof deck. Like I personally think Elf Note is a more baby-proof deck because I can just make Crystal Wing and Don Dragsta. 2 negates. Depending on what my opponent draws, like it's a lot. I feel safer. Like I think that's too, like Fairy Tale had that safeness to it. Malice had that safeness to it, where it's like, yeah, you might not fully know what's going on, but like you negate someone's spell, you monster, you omni negate something, like it's going to make it harder for them, whether you know if you're hitting at the right spot in interaction and knowing what everything's doing or not, right? So right now, there is a regional coming up in my area that I would like to attend for the vibes. It really is just to have the experience. I've never been to a regional. This is going to be my first regional ever. And I was thinking, like, how do I go into this and not feel like, and while I could play Fairy Tale, which is a deck that I've been on for a while that I feel really proud of, that I got my first ever, like, top, I want a Griffo. I want a Griffo. Like, my first ever, like, actual, like, win, right? I wanted to challenge myself to learn something new, and I want to stick to that. The reason I started doing Malfi, the reason I started doing Blitzclick is because I was like, I think it's time. And then the regional got announced after I'd already done all this. And I didn't want to go back and be like, okay, I'm just going to like old, faithful, reliable. Because something, again, I really like about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the learning. Like my brain, sometimes it makes my brain mad and sad, but also it makes my brain like, it's like scratches the itch of like needing to think through stuff. Like having an analytical game or like conversation around something like this. Like, oh, love it. So I want to learn something new. And I had to make the concession of, okay, here's how I'm feeling. Here's my goals. I do not feel like I can pilot Malfi or I can pilot Blitzclick in a way where, take away win or lose, I feel like I am having interactive agency in the games I'm playing, where I'm feeling like I'm like, yeah, I did something. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Not Yu-Gi-Oh! Was played against me, but like I played Yu-Gi-Oh! So, but I don't want to just, to me, it felt like going back, like, I don't want to go crawling back to the deck that I feel safe, because I want to challenge myself. So I'm going to learn Elf Notes. I think they're cute. It's a deck that I have always thought is really pretty and cute, and it's meta, and it has some safety nets to it in terms of what synchros it makes. So even at the regional, even if I already playing Elf Notes, it's not like I've gone on like a terror winning spree if you've seen any of the locals. In fact, trying to learn it, I've done some really stupid, illegal, bad plays. Just like it has not been pretty. But I feel more back and forth, and I am feeling much better about the state of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Experience. And so I think those are like the big, like top 3 tips. Is 1, taking a break is always an option. You are not bound to show up to every locals. You are not bound to have to continue buying the sets, playing current. Like 1, it could be taking a break, and however that looks. Maybe it means not going to locals, just playing with friends. Maybe it means still consuming content and playing on Omega, but not like taking a break. 2, really thinking like, what do I want out of this game? And realizing like there's a lot of in-betweens, because I think sometimes it can be very simple of like, oh, well, what you want out of the game is to win. I think who plays a game to lose? Right? I don't think anyone, whether you're the most casual player, whether you play Genesis, whether you play Edison, whether you play Advanced, whether you play like the street playground rules, like who shows up to play a game and you're like, yeah, I'm here because I love losing. That's just not a thing. But if you're like really like, I want to win, I want to travel, I want to top locals, I want to do all those things, like sitting down with that. And if it's like, well, that's not my goal, well, then what is? Well, my goal is to have fun and dig a little deeper, because sometimes losing doesn't feel fun. So what are you trying to get out of it? And so for me, it was like, okay, I want to at least feel interactive. I want to feel like I'm learning. I want to feel like I had agency in the games I'm playing. And then the third thing is making adjustments as needed. And maybe if no adjustments can be made, that's when you're like, yeah, I got to take a break. Because for me, I do want to pick back up Melfi, but I need to take a break from Melfi. I do like Blitzclick Rizio. I'm waiting on one EXT of all the cards. See, I'm even looking. Of all the cards I ordered, I got my 7 Tachyons in, got my Detonator in. Of all the cards that I like ordered, I'm missing EXT. I want to wait for the regional though. And I think waiting till after the regional is, it's not just me waiting till after the regional. It's also knowing like I needed a break from that as well, because I just wasn't feeling successful. So now I'm playing a deck that I feel successful in. Doesn't mean I'm winning, but I feel successful. All this to say, it actually was really, really nice to see so many comments of people sympathizing and validating my feelings, and being like, yeah, this game sometimes sucks. Now, we get to say that. If you don't play Yu-Gi-Oh, you don't get to say Yu-Gi-Oh sucks. It's the greatest game of all time. Shut your mouth. But like those of us who play it, of realizing and seeing other people be like, yeah, I've been playing for a long time. Like this is the ebbs and flows and the problems, and being able to be like, yeah, you know, I stand by the fact that I think it's a business. Konami's a business. I get it. Like they're going to work to shape the game in a way that is going to benefit them as well as hopefully the players, right? And so you have decks that are going to include Harmonia, and Harmonia is expensive and therefore you're making money. We print Pot of Sloth, that's going to make money. Like there's all these things that are out of, I feel like, our control, but it's also really nice to be in a community of people being like, yeah. Like sometimes it's not even that the person across from you is even perhaps more skilled or spend as much time on their deck, but like they have the money to buy the card that stopped you, like, and they drew it. And like sometimes, or just like realizing, yeah, like there's some formats that are so not varied, and there's been formats in the past that have been less varied than the format we're in. There will be formats in the future that will be less varied than the format we're in, but there will be formats like Juhu, and it's just like you ride the wave, and we stay here and we keep playing because we love the game. I mean, it was really cool to read comments of people saying they're like moments on their rogue decks of where they won, or the decks that they've loved, and the memories. And like, I mean, I think I've said it on here of where I had Yu-Gi-Oh cards as a child. I was obsessed with the anime. Like I wrote fan fiction. Yami the Pharaoh, that was my boyfriend. And I vividly remember like walking through Walmart, and I looked over at like the boys section, and they had Yu-Gi-Oh shirts and Yu-Gi-Oh backpacks, and how badly I wanted one. But I was a girl, and they didn't have that in the girls section. And being a 90s baby, growing up in a space where there were boy hobbies and girl hobbies when I was growing up. Like that was just unfortunately a thing. You know, I remember my male cousins not wanting to let me play Pokemon. Like they had their Game Boys and they were playing like original Pokemon, you know, Yellow. And I was like, oh, I want to play it. And they're like, you can't, you're a girl. Like genuinely, I was told like, excuse you, you're a girl. So Yu-Gi-Oh was one of those things that like I had the cards, but I didn't have one. On top of being autistic, I definitely didn't have any of social circle to play it with, but that's like a separate thing. But it was something that in the comfort of my room, sitting in front of the TV with my cards, watching the show, and just wishing I could have like the harpies. That's why I love the harpies. I love the harpies because I was like, she's, you know, there's she plays, she has all her like baddie harpies, and like it was crazy when I finally learned the game. When I finally found people who could teach me the game and to play the game, and to be like, if I could go back in time and tell like baby Reina and be like, girl, not only are you getting to actually play, like you have people to play with, you also get to yap about it on the internet and people like engage with you. Like that's why, even as sad as Yu-Gi-Oh can make me, that little Reina would lose her mind if she knew we actually got to like, if I had like cards on the wall and shiny cards, Starlight rares. Oh my gosh, she would freak out. Like that's at the end of the day, even above like being successful and wanting to win or wanting to, learn, or that's why. And I think for a lot of us, we have stories like that and reasons like that around the game of why we're going to keep playing, even if it makes me sad sometimes. But yeah, thanks everyone for giving your feedback on it. I think it was really cool to see and hear and find some solace. And it was a good to reflect on and of thinking about my future with the game and I'm going to keep playing and I'm going to keep learning and I'm going to keep making some mistakes. And hopefully y'all will also be here learning and playing and we can commiserate when it's time to commiserate and celebrate when it's time to celebrate. So yeah, Alphonse, you want to say bye? Oh. Okay, catch you on the next one. Bye.